Pam Grier. You won't believe how many battle scars hide behind that fierce stare, and how many of them were fought off screen. What if I told you the woman who rewrote what a female action star could be, survived childhood attacks, battled a Hollywood that tried to buy her, and then stared down a deadly illness that exposed truths nobody wanted to hear? That's Pam Grier's story. She was born the 26th of May, 1949, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, into a family that moved a lot. Her dad in the Air Force, her mom a nurse. Growing up felt rootless. So when the family landed in England for a few years, Pam experienced something she hadn't at home. People treated her like a person first. They were raised to hate Germans, not us, she would later recall. And that small mercy stuck with her. Back in the US, though, the real world was harsher. Segregation and slights followed her into adolescence. Buses that wouldn't stop. Pools that wouldn't let her in. Stores that shut their dressing rooms to her and her father. It made her hungry for dignity. At 6, a brutality happened that no child should endure. Pam was attacked by older boys at a relative's house. She didn't tell anyone for years. Shame and fear locked her mouth. At 18, she was assaulted again. Decades later, she would explain that those two events shaped everything. Her silence, her steel, the characters she'd bring to life on screen, those wounds turned into armor. She was mixed race in a world that didn't hand out easy places for people like her. To pay for college, she entered the Miss Colorado Universe pageant, and, while she didn't win, the pageant introduced her to Hollywood. By the late 60 seconds, she was in Los Angeles, with $200 and big nerves. She hustled. Switchboard operator, hostess, receptionist, even nude modeling for art students, whatever it took. She ate one meal a day some weeks. She learned how the business moved, by being where it moved. Her first credited on-screen, the moment was a tiny, unpaid walk-on in Beyond the Valley of the Dolls. But what changed everything was meeting producer Roger Corman. He saw her presence, that height, that strength, and cast her in The Big Dollhouse. Pam trained like a pro. Hours of martial arts, weapons practice, a real physical preparation. She bulked up, learned stunts, and made it clear she wasn't a painted prop. When the film broke through, it wasn't just luck. It was presence, grit, and an authenticity that audiences noticed. Still, Hollywood's gatekeepers kept testing her. She was propositioned, threatened with parts in exchange for her body. Once, a powerful man told her to sleep with him or walk away from a role. She fought him off. She could have left the industry, and sometimes she wanted to, but she stayed and used her parts as a way to push back. Her characters didn't just survive, they struck back. Through the early 70 seconds, Pam became the face of a new kind of cinema women who were not passive victims, but furious, clever, unstoppable forces. In films like Coffee and Foxy Brown, she turned pain into power. Those performances were raw, sometimes brutal, and they altered what audiences expected from women in action films. She did her own stunts, improvised shocking moments that stuck in people's memories, and refused nudity when it didn't serve the character. She demanded dignity in roles that could have easily erased it. Her range wasn't only physical. She slid into horror, blaxploitation, and mainstream drama, from Scream Blackula Scream to Sheba Baby, from Bucktown to Friday Foster. She worked with big names, Paul Newman, Glenn Close, Pierce Brosnan, and even when studios tried to reshape or minimize her, she kept finding ways to be seen. Disney once trimmed her scenes after nervous test audiences. That stung, but she kept going. Off-screen, her life tangled with some of the most brilliant and troubled figures of the era. She dated Kareem Abdul-Jabbar briefly, and later had relationships with people like Richard Pryor and Wilt Chamberlain. With Pryor, she experienced the shadow side of fame. Substance abuse, danger, and the time she discovered traces of cocaine in her own body. She walked away from what hurt her. She grieved when friends and lovers were lost too soon. That pain seeped into her work and her activism. Then, in 1988, at 39, everything changed. Pam, healthy, disciplined, the kind of woman who ran miles and ate clean, was told she had stage 4 cervical cancer. Doctors gave her months. She had to wait weeks before treatment could begin. In that time, the disease advanced. Still, she worked. She filmed, hid her illness beneath wigs and makeup, and endured chemotherapy without fanfare. The man she loved wasn't there for her first chemo. He disappeared for years. It was a brutal lesson in who would stand with her. Loss compounded the struggle. Her sister died of breast cancer. Her nephew later took his own life. Grief and guilt nearly broke her. But Pam also looked beyond conventional medicine. A documentary about alternative healing grabbed her attention. She blended Eastern remedies, herbs, acupuncture, meditation, and strict physical discipline with conventional treatment. Miraculously, the cancer retreated. Decades later, she was still here, teaching early detection, encouraging people to get checked, and speaking out about how survival is rarely clean or simple. As she processed recovery, therapy revealed what she'd carried whole decades: PTSD, the long-shadowed trauma of her assaults. Suddenly, the tough women she'd played made sense as emotional armor, not just roles, but survival strategies. In her memoir, she laid it out: the pain, the fury, the refusal to be victimized again. The book hit readers hard because she spoke plainly, without the gloss Hollywood often insists on. Pam's career got a second wind in the 90 seconds. Quentin Tarantino reimagined the lead of Rum Punch for her and handed her Jackie Brown, a role that acknowledged everything she'd built in the 70 seconds and gave her new, wider acclaim. The film was a comeback and a celebration, and it reminded critics and viewers that she'd always been a force. She earned award buzz, and more importantly, she reclaimed the narrative. Decades on screen, and still vital. So, what's the takeaway? Pam Grier's life isn't a neat redemption arc where everything is fixed. It's a long haul. Survival, reinvention, rage turned into artistry. She took pain and used it to create some of the most memorable female characters on screen. Women who fought, schemed, loved, and refused to disappear. And she turned her survival into activism, teaching people to check their bodies, to speak up, and to demand dignity. If this moved you, share it. Hit like if her resilience surprised you. Want more stories about people who turned trauma into power? Subscribe. There's always another life that changes how we see the world.